Everybody, this is the regular meeting of the Board of Finance, March 20. We have a full agenda tonight. We're going to start with the Administrative Officer and Director of Finance reports.
Thank you. I have a report for you through February 2025. That's a year-end surplus of $500,000, which leaves us a slight decline in our fund balance of $300,000 at the end of the fiscal year, and that would leave us at $8.8 million, or a little over 15% of our annual budget. We have our continue to do well in our interest income account. It has generated a surplus of about $250,000. Our charge for services will project a deficit of about $90,000 in transfer station revenues and $70,000 in excuse me, that's $90,000 is $70,000 is building permits, so that's about $162,000. And we've taken steps to offset the deficit in transfer station revenues. We're reviewing that operation and see if we can make some suggested adjustments to some of the fee schedules there. And we also, the reason for the deficit there is due to some reduced tonnage in the at the transfer station and some solid waste. You'll see that later on in the report. That also contributed to the reduction in revenues. Building official is a surplus of $14,000. That's generally due to the amount of time spent by the building official himself. The as I indicated, waste management is a $30,000 surplus. So really, if you net the two, it's a smaller deficit. Amity, we reduced our March payment by $352,000, and we anticipate a slight surplus of $20,000 in employee benefits. Those all contribute. The one thing I do want to mention is that this surplus may be reduced as we get further into the project at the center building, and as we get more information about that project, most likely that surplus will be reduced.
Okay.
So your next meeting, you should have a lot more information on that.
Any questions for Tony about his report?
So did you have any background in terms of the reduced tonnage?
Yeah, I do actually. We had one of our compactors were down. That was definitely contributed to the reduced tonnage, as we weren't getting the volume in the compactors, so they were being repaired.
And as a result, some of the trucks would have to go to a different transfer
Correct.
station.
Right.
So we had to turn some people away.
Correct.
Correct. But we fixed them, and it was just a blip of about 2 months. If you see the tonnage, it's like goes down.
So has the demand gone back up since
we? Okay. It has. Yeah. It's gone back to it's equalized back to normal.
Worthwhile to consider that's going to be a pretty considerable expense because we fixed it, and it's been fixed a couple times. Tony.
Correct. So at some point we're going to have to replace them, and
Correct.
It'll be a huge expense. So we're trying to.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Help them last as long as possible.
Anything else on that? I failed to ask if there was any public comment, Gay.
Oh, no, there's not.
Okay, thank you. All right, you all set?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to funding requests.
Woodbridge Board of Ed, isn't that?
I think that's
Do you have any-
For your information.
It's just for
That's
information
okay,
purposes,
okay.
yeah. Funding requests, I need a motion for line item transfer 2425-27 in the amount of $2,463. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Tony, you want to tell us about this?
This is just for additional expenses related to the revaluation process and for increased notices.
Okay.
She's taken from within her budget.
Any questions, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? No, good. I need a motion for line item transfer 2425-29 in the amount of $7,000 having to do with waste management, electricity account. This is pretty straightforward.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions, or did you want to say anything
I just
about
wanted to
it?
mention that I originally had one for the center building, but we've decided to table that at the selectmen's meeting because the building's closed. So we're using less electricity, so we thought we'd wait another month and see, maybe I could, because that one was a funding request from contingency, so maybe it'll be a little less.
Right. Okay, anything else on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I need a motion for funding line 2425-30 in the amount of $55,000. This has to do with Public Works overtime. Did you want to say something, Tony?
This is for mostly for storm-related events that have happened throughout the year. And we didn't have many large events, but we had a lot of ice in conditions
Trees
that
down.
required.
Yeah, trees down.
Trees down.
Moving
a lot of
trees
smaller
out of the
events
roads,
where a
yeah.
lot of the crew had to.
And these are dollars coming out of contingency,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Any questions?
Motion for request number 2425-30 for $55,000 to fund the deficit in Public Works?
Is there a
Second.
second?
That's fine.
I'm sorry, I thought we had already made a
No, we
motion.
hadn't
Okay.
made a
we didn't
motion, I
make
just
the
wanted to get
motion.
that out of the way.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, good, so that passed. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Susan, you got ahead of yourself there. Okay. All right, good. We're gonna move on to item number 4, which is approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the Board of Finance minutes from March 5, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All right, are any additions, corrections, changes, anything anybody wants to say? Everybody's happy with the way it looks? Okay, all in favor to approve
Aye.
the minutes? Any opposition? I think we were all there, so there's no abstentions, correct? Yes, okay. All right, the audit bid award. Mr. Genovese, you wanna talk about that?
Sure. So we had our last final year of our audit with RSM this past year. So we went out to bid for audit services for the, what we decided to do was a 2-year proposal with a 3 option years. So it would be a total of 5 years, and the options are at the town's option. So it's essentially, it's essentially a 5-year audit. So because typically there's a more time required for an audit firm the first year as they get used, if it's a new firm, to get used to the town's procedures, and just generally how things operate. But that's amortized over the cost of the whole term. So anyway, we went out to bid. Some of the things we look for are experience with other towns, of which we received 4 bids, and all 4 had experience in other towns, varying degrees of experience, but you'll notice they all have other municipalities. And also experience with ACFR. ACFR is the annual comprehensive financial report that we issue, that we get issue with the Government Finance Officers Association. There's also a work that goes along with that, and so we were looking for somebody with experience in that area. So I put together a chart of the 4 responses that we received. And so Donna Coonan from the Board of Ed and I reviewed all 4 responses, and we interviewed the 2 lowest prices, which was PKF O'Connor Davies and Clifton Larson Allen.
It's a pretty big spread on this chart.
It is.
Huge.
Wow,
Very big
Amazing.
spread.
wow.
So we reviewed both firms. Both firms answered all our questions successfully. Both firms are doing a complete audit, including the state and federal portion where we get a single audit. And at the end of the day, we could not find a reason why we shouldn't award the contract to PKF O'Connor Davies, the low bid. Clifton Larson Allen was the other one we interviewed. They both did an excellent job. I think we do well with both firms. As you can see, Clifton Larson Allen has quite a few more counts than PKF O'Connor Davies, but she checked a couple of Board of Ed references. I checked some town references, and they all came back positive. So that's our recommendation.
Any questions? Do you need a motion from
We
us?
do, because the Board of Finance is the audit committee, and so you have to award every year you assign the audit to a firm, and we'll be assigning it this year, and then we have to report to OPM,
Well, are you gonna, what type of contract? You gonna go with 3-year, you're gonna go with
So
2 year?
we're gonna do the,
1 year.
we'll do a 2-year and then we'll see how it goes.
2 years, so.
Yeah,
2 year.
but it'll
okay.
be, the contracts are annual, but we'll, we'll,
You'll
add
lock
the
them in,
option.
you'll lock them in for 2 years.
correct.
Yeah.
But this will lock the price in for 5 years,
Right.
at our option.
So in year 5, if you decide to go with years 3 and 4,
Then you're
these
gonna have to
prices
go out
will
and re-
hold.
Correct.
to
These
rebid.
prices will hold.
Correct.
Susan, as a point of order, I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation because I just realized my wife's firm is one of the 4
Right.
firms, so.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, okay?
Yeah.
I'm happy to make a
Yeah.
motion, if you'd like
Yeah,
that.
Beth, please.
I'll make a motion that we accept we reward the contract for the audit for, do you want me to say for 2 years with option to renew after?
No, you can just do it for this year,
Okay. for
because
this
next year we'll have you have to do it each year.
Okay,
For
gotcha.
OPM, each year you have to
Gotcha.
assign the audit.
To
Yeah.
PKF O'Connor Davies.
Second.
Any further questions?
Just, Tony, was there any indication as to the difference between the 400 hours and the 600 and some odd hours as to why the significant number difference there?
So we only interviewed the bottom 2, and
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I'm not really sure why they had so many more hours, because
What do they normally spend? You know, what
400 it was about
Is
what they
they-
spent.
is about what they spent in pay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
450. If you look at the bids from 4 years ago, they were 400, I think, actually. A little bit was 400.
How long had we been using RSM?
We've been using RSM, boy, since when I first started.
It's been a long
Over
time.
20 years.
But that's a big enough difference to want to have a clean look.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
Any other thoughts? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And Javier is abstaining. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that sounds, oop, I just clicked out. I didn't mean to do that. Hang on. Let me catch back up. Hang on.
Oh, please.
Oh, hold
usually
please.
do
Yes,
that.
exactly,
Click out.
exactly. Wait a minute, I gotta go all the way back
Yeah,
in.
sometimes.
But we can
all of a
start the
sudden you're out.
conversation. We
You-
can
You're
start the
back, so
conversation.
You're back in your email.
Exactly.
Tonight, we need to review and act on the budget recommendations, both operating and capital. I'm told that well, let me get to that in a minute. Tony, why don't you just jump on in?
So the Board of Finance has to recommend a budget to the preliminary budget hearing, which takes place at the end of April. Do you have the exact date?
April 24th.
24th.
So, we're looking for a recommendation from the board, and in your package, I've provided all the relevant documents. There's a budget adjustments that we put together as a start for discussion, and they're they're not exhaustive, or can be adjusted or changed. It's just for a moment of to start discussions. The documents that you have in front of you have those changes in them. So to the extent that you are going to make adjustments, I could make them right here, and I can tell you what the if you want to change any lines or add any or remove any, I can certainly make those adjustments here. And so the budget summary, if you look at it, has a expenditure increase of 4.95%, a non-tax revenues of 4.85% increase, which gives you a tax increase of 4.97%. That'll leave a 32.68 mill rate and a 32.46 mill rate for autos, for motor vehicles.
Which is almost exactly the same, pretty close.
Oh yeah, pretty close, yeah. And there's a list of budget adjustments, which we can certainly go through if you'd like. And the other thing I want to mention was, if you look at increases by category for expenditures, I put that in there also. You have the town department increases 3.54%. The Amity Board of Education is 7.25%, which I received from the finance director there. So that's apparently right after their vote that they took. Were you at that meeting? Yeah.
Yes,
The Woodbridge Board of Education is a 5.18% increase, and that's in discussions with the Board of Ed superintendent and the business manager, and some adjustments that they were able to make to their budget based on new information. That's a reduction of $119,000 from the Board of Selectmen recommended budget. The Board of Selectmen had already reduced it 45,000, so, or 40, I think 45. So this is, I'll get that right here in a second. 47, excuse me. So this is $166,000 reduction to their budget in total from their request. You could see the adjustments are broken down between capital and operating. And I also included a revenue item in there, which is an increase in prior year tax collections. We've seen an uptick in our collections, particularly since we've started using a marshal. And so I was able to comfortably raise that up $25,000.
And Tony, what's still outstanding? I mean, we always wait for insurance and,
So insurance is pretty close. I was able to reduce insurance by, $12,000. I had budgeted a little less. I was able to reduce ours at the selectmen level too, because we had received more information. I think that's pretty close. I know the Board of Education was able to reduce theirs based on our insurance, and that was a big portion of their reduction. So we're currently close to finalizing that for next year.
So I see a schedule here called possible budget adjustments.
Right. So those are the adjustments that I added to these documents.
It's included.
It's included,
Okay.
right.
Gotcha.
Right. So those are the changes that are from the selectmen's recommended budget. So you'll see in there, it
Gotcha.
includes
Got
like
it.
the 2 Board of Education ones that I discussed.
Right.
It would remove the $28,000 part-time clerical position in the selectman's office. That was requested. The $40,000 in economic development.
Yep.
That was for the pop-up store idea. The audit, see there, it's $13,000 that we've saved on our end.
Mhm.
I know Donna had savings on her end, reduction in bank fees. Some of these are actuals, some are, there are 3 in there that are increases. The chief had requested, so we put all the selectmen's budget information out on our network so that the departments can see. And always say to them, listen, if there are any changes in there or adjustments that you feel you would like to finance to revisit, to let us know. And the fire chief did let us know about 3, which was software, computer, and cell phone. And after discussing with the fire chief, I thought that he made some good points, and it would be helpful to put that back in. So we did that. And then there's some benefit reductions based on new information. So these are the ones we have so far. If you have others, I can certainly, or I want to adjust any of these, I can certainly make those changes and let you know what the impact would be.
Question for you.
Oh,
Capital.
First.
Yes,
The town hall water and the library water, we have issues.
we do. So we have money for.
I mean, is this something that we want to keep putting off year after year after year, and we're not going to address it? Because it is a problem. And the problem.
What is the problem, sorry?
Huh?
What is the problem?
No, the water getting into the building, water intrusion.
I would agree. I'll just explain.
I'm just saying, I'm looking at it and I'm saying is, we tend to put maintenance off. We'll do it next year, we'll do it and it's true. But the thing is, this is water that's not gonna go away. It's not gonna fix it, it's gonna get worse. So my question is, is this, because until we identify the problem, we don't know what the fix is.
So the budget has, but the capital budget still has $20,000 in there for.
Right, it has,
design.
right, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but you're showing a deduct, a 10 here.
Right, so let me pull that up and I'll explain.
Dwight, I'm familiar with the one from
So-
discussions with Brad on the Center building, is that?
No, well, we have one, and the center building's not here. And it should be.
Okay.
So what
There
we
should
could
be one
do,
on the center, because when they get a heavy rain, he gets a ton of water in the switchgear room, in the
Well,
electrical.
let
So,
let Tony
can I make a
answer the question.
suggestion?
Sure, go ahead.
Um,
Go ahead.
how about if we combine them all into, water, in building
Intrusion.
water issues, and have one amount for all three?
Which is
and-
fine.
but we
I
get
just
the
think,
same- we'll get the
it-
same
I
design
think it's
firm.
important for us not to push it down the road. We'll look at it next year, because the thing is, water doesn't go away. Water,
So we
water's
currently
there.
have,
It's there.
this will leave $20,000 in the budget, because it
And
was
then we'll
originally
have to
40.
allocate how we're gonna spend it.
Yeah, it was originally 40, and I dropped it to 20, for, I could, so if you feel like 20 is not enough, I don't have a feel for how much it would cost to
So
get a
it's
design
not
firm.
zero, you haven't
No,
zeroed it out.
it's still, it's at
Just went
20.
from 40 to
It was
20.
at
Yeah.
40 to 20, because I thought 40 was a little excessive
Yeah.
for just design costs.
Yeah,
Well,
But
it's,
this
yeah,
doesn't- this
well,
doesn't
it's
fund
not
the
just
fix.
design, it's, first of all, you're gonna have to excavate, you're gonna have to spend some money to actually find out what the issue is.
Yeah.
So it's just not an engineering issue, it's more of a, you have to explore and find out. Because unless you really know, you don't know what the fix is. That's the problem.
Well,
But I'm just bringing that up as a concern, that's all.
whether it's 20 or 40, it's a problem. We're gonna address the problem, because I don't think we have much of a choice at this
No,
point.
I understand, I
So
understand.
it's, the 20,000 is acting as a placeholder, because we know we have to get it
that was my point, we're not
evaluated
zeroed.
and looked
Okay.
There's
at,
something
Right,
there.
okay.
and that's why we have contingency,
Okay,
and that's
okay.
why we,
No, that's all right. I'm
have
just-
all the other
I'm just
stuff.
mentioning, that's all. I
That
just,
recognizes
Yeah.
as a problem.
I think what I will do for the capital plan, though, is make one project for all
Yeah,
three, and this
that's
way
a
here
good
you can
idea.
also.
and then we can,
And then you
Yeah.
can move it around as you think is
Correct.
appropriate
Yeah,
to
yeah.
evaluate the problem, which
Yeah.
I think makes a lot
I'm
more sense.
just a little concerned, that's all, so we did,
Um,
okay.
Yeah, no, and Dwight, you're correct, because we've talked about how the capital piece of our town complex needs attention big time.
Right, and it does, and it does.
Like
And
we
it's
said
just-
last time, maintenance is expensive, and deferred maintenance is even more expensive. So there we are, okay. Tony, I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page here as we are understanding this. When the presentations were made by all the departments, it showed a 9.23% increase. The BOS, Board of Selectmen made adjustments, which got it down to 5.73. And the adjustments that your office has worked on since then, we're now down to 4.95.
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure that
Could I
clear
ask one
to
other
anyone who's
question
listening.
when you're done?
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, of
I
course.
don't want to stop you, I'm sorry. Just refresh my memory on the part-time clerical for the Board of Selectmen at
Certainly.
28,000. I remember that position and what,
So the
is that going to be a
funds were
problem?
originally put in for a part-time clerical position to help with the Community and Cultural Center.
Okay, that's
Okay.
what it was for.
It was for the
All right,
Community and
thank
Cultural
you.
Center,
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. One of which is we're still working on the construction of the building. And also, we're looking to reorganize some of our departments, and we're hopeful that maybe we can find some of those hours within our existing budget.
Okay,
It's,
And, you know,
it's a very important mention. I still feel very strongly that it's something that we should consider in terms of having an individual whose main purpose is to manage that site to make sure that it's actually used. But I recognize that we have to be conscious of exactly where the budget is.
understood. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, thank
And
you.
we were looking at it as a part-time position. And based on the construction, we'll probably only need 9 months of it
Okay,
at the most.
thank you.
Other
So-
questions, issues?
And then the other question I just had is, everybody knows about these cuts? Have everybody been advised?
No,
or-
but what'll happen is we'll go through the same process.
Okay.
Whereas if you make these cuts, then we'll send it to the departments, and then if they have concerns or
They'll come back.
comments, they'll come back to us, and then I'll let you know at the
Okay.
hearing, and then after the budget hearing, you can always restore them.
Okay, now I was just
Yeah.
curious if we shared any of this or
Yeah,
with
not yet.
everybody, okay.
In theory, we can vote on this tonight, but if there's something that's really huge that we're concerned about, we can put off our vote for about 10 days. But if
It's
we're,
gotta be done by then.
if we're,
April
April
1st.
1st, you
April
said.
1st, yeah.
April 1st.
So.
But if we sort of feel like this has gone in the right direction, and the finance department, and I know Mika's office has been working on this, I know I've been working on this, I know Tony's office has been working on it like crazy. And this does reflect quite a bit, some nice tweaking, I think, then we can vote on it tonight. Just remind me, Tony, if we go with the recommendation at 4.95%, what's the mill rate on that?
The mill rate will be 32.68.
32.68.
Yeah. And for real estate, personal property, and autos, motor vehicles, is 32.46.
Right.
So they're very similar, as Dwight mentioned.
In your budget summary. Same thing in your budget summary.
Mhm.
So what do you all want to do? Any other questions?
The town planner, that amount's still in the budget, right?
It is. And it's based on the consulting fees that we paid.
I'm going to say this, that I think this year in particular, we have a very difficult conversation ahead of us with the entire town of Woodbridge to keep them from erroneously connecting dots that are not related in terms of their revaluations and potentially their taxes increasing for completely unrelated reasons. Mika, I know you and I have had separate conversations about other concerns that I have with the current town planner, but I think separate from those, I think it may be worth considering whether this year we can carry that bag ourselves for another year, and potentially resume the services of a town planner next year after we've passed the POCD process and after we've matured the master planning process for the country club. I think there may be some value in pausing that for a year and maybe looking into resuming that next year. I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, especially given the increased workload it's going to cause on you directly. And I do recognize the value that a firm like that provides. But that's just a concern that I anticipate having, and a conversation that I know is going to come up in the middle of the budget process.
How much money is in the budget for that? For the
80,000,
planner?
a little over 83,000, I think, Tony.
Yeah, 85,000.
Did you want to answer that, or do you want to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead. Now, boys.
Fasten your
Now,
seatbelts.
boys.
No, it's.
Try and restrain yourselves.
I think you're very sensitive to the needs, and you're absolutely right in terms of it not being a very popular decision. It's interesting because I think what I did not do a good job of this year is communicating clearly to those in the leadership role here, meaning the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and the Commission specifically, the value that the town planner brings. And it is in what you described in terms of just having an additional resource that can help in terms of a very short staff, but it's also in terms of the type of activities that they engage in. One of the things that I feel very strongly and have always felt very strongly is we need growth. We need growth in the business district. We need economic development. We need growth in we're looking at all different ways to grow. And this expertise that they bring to the table is just something we don't have. And it's something that's desperately needed. And if you look at virtually any other community, even smaller communities than us, they have that type of resource. And we haven't had it for quite some time. And I believe we've suffered as a result of it. That's only in terms of what the functionality brings to the town and the expertise that's brought to the town and the possible benefit and advancements that it's brought to the town. We've been able to, and I'll put it in a funny way, we've been able to raise a lot of dust in terms of shaking out the carpets and figuring out what we need to do. And there's so much legwork and so much groundwork and so much grunt work that's required to get things started, to engage with the appropriate individuals, to engage with the appropriate departments, to really try to just get the wheels grinding to get moving forward. And that's what they bring to the table, and that's the benefit that's there. Now, besides that, we don't have an administrative officer We don't have we don't have as much clerical staff as we've had in the past. We don't have, there's a number of positions that we've eliminated through attrition over the course of the last number of years. And that was very specifically to address budget concerns and try to do as much as we can for the community in terms of controlling taxes. We're at a point now where there's nothing else. Okay, so if we're not able to grow, it's time for us to cut programs, cut people, to start cutting things that this town doesn't need to have and shouldn't have to make those cuts. It's just literally a matter of us deciding that we want to, and we will accept the fact that we will take the course and actually use the resources to grow. And without that, next year, we'll absolutely be looking at severe cuts in terms of services and amenities and people, which I don't think the town, when I look at our town, we shouldn't have to do that. We just simply should not have to do that. But when you look at the books, you look at the numbers, and you look where we are, we will absolutely have to that. We can't defer maintenance, as Dwight was saying. We can't continue to do that. That's hurt us already, but it's something that we wanted to do because it was necessary to maintain the taxes. So at some point in time, you have to say, I got to bite the bullet. I got to get what I need. I got to be able to move forward, and we've got to grow in the town. So that's the reason for needing that. That's the reason I support that resource.
I appreciate that. What I keep coming back to is that when a resident comes up to me and says, we're having a conversation about the budget and the taxes going up, and it's very practical when I can say that, without X funds, you wouldn't have this.
Right.
Or these other funds, you wouldn't have that. The town planner is something that's very esoteric in nature, and it's very hard to put that rubber to the road and explain to them, without a town planner, you wouldn't have this. Because right now, I realize we're very early in the process.
Yes.
We can't explain that value that the town planner has given us so far. And it's hard to put a hard benefit, a tangible benefit in the hands of a taxpayer so that they can fully understand that. You and I might have a completely different, but I think this year in particular, that the sensitivity that people are going to have to the increase in valuations, and you juxtapose that with what Dwight just said about, other expenses in town, that we absolutely have to fix this. You'll be able to see the funds that we spend over here. That's just a sensitivity that I heard you. I know you're sensitive to that. You appreciate that. I appreciate your explanation of that, and we'll move forward.
In reality, one of the ways you can view this is in deferred maintenance. We keep in that resource, because without that resource, without that expertise, you're just basically saying, stay pat. Let's not make the necessary efforts. Let's not take the necessary actions for us to move forward in that area. So it is kind of a deferral, and we've been doing. We just can't afford to do that again unless the town, the residents, the board of selectmen are all ready to make the types of cuts that you see happen in other towns, and I just don't see that we need to do that. I see that there's an opportunity for us to grow, just very simply grow, and find different revenue streams and increase revenue streams in such a way as to allow us to maintain the level of services, improve the level of services, and without necessarily asking everybody to dig deeper in their pockets.
Okay.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm sensitive to both sides, of course, because it's a tough year, but I'll just say from my position that several of us for years have been pushing to have a town planner. And what I would not like to see us, unless we have to, is to say, let's use them for a year, and then oops, we can't do it, and then we're gonna go another 10, 15 years without one. So I think that optic is there. But I think the point is that maybe as part of our communication, we have to make it clear. I mean, I hate to say it, we've been talking about growing the town for years, and it's kind of hard for me to sort of visualize how the town planner will aid us in growing. I'm not saying they don't, I'm having a hard time saying what is the storyline around that. And maybe if we can figure out a way of communicating that, then it becomes more concrete.
And I think that that part of it is the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen, frankly.
Right.
What I'm hearing is it is potentially a tough sell, but the Board of Selectmen no longer wants to, pardon the expression, kick the plan down the road. I mean, it's time to engage in that. And I'm just going to footnote this a little bit with my own experience as co-chair of the 2030 committee. Volunteers are not professionals who show up and say, this is what we should do, and this is how we make it happen. We don't have that joint expertise, and it takes a professional component to move anything forward. It's just the way it is. And I think that that's probably why the Board of Selectmen really wants to move into that direction. But Javier, I'm glad you brought it up, because I think it kind of goes to, I want all of us, if we can, before we vote on anything, to take a look at this fact sheet that we've come up with, because it does set the tone about what you're talking about, and it does make sure that we're all using the same variables when we explain this to the public, okay? And those variables are important. I think I think the people who have appealed their revals, there's still like a number of cases that are pending,
Yes.
and they don't know where that's gonna end up. But it's important for people to understand that that revaluation process is not an option that Woodbridge chose to engage in. It's a state mandated process, as is all the things that follow on this fact sheet. My goal, and I think we talked about this, if we're all comfortable with this, this should be a resource available to, anyone in Woodbridge who wants to take a look at this piece of paper. We can either have it available at the meeting, or we could, post it,
We
or,
could, yep.
post it on the website or something, so that there's facts out there, as opposed to everybody's hair on fire. I know it's a tough year. I agree with you about that.
It is.
It is. There's no
definitely
question.
is.
It-
Look,
But-
It's interesting.
But we are a town that we keep going. We don't get to stop because it's a tough year. So,
I'll also add that it is a tough year. It's particularly tough for the top third of the homeowners whose assessments increased substantially. For the bottom third of those same revaluations, it's not going to be such a tough year. We expect that there will be people who will realize a significant tax decrease even with the budget. And then the middle three, where it's going to be the marginal, the top end of the middle three will see something of an increase. The bottom end of the middle three might see no increase or even a decrease. So it is a tough year, but that's because I am particularly sensitive to that top third, because it's significant. You're talking 25, 30% increases. And I know how much that would hurt any of us, no matter what the circumstances
hurt on
were.
taxes, but not hurt when they go to sell their property.
Correct.
I mean,
Great
you
point.
now have a significantly more valuable asset on your asset sheet.
Correct. But from a tax perspective,
tax
they're
perspective,
and that was part of what I was going to say, in terms of what I was going to say here. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. It's important we do our job. It's important we do the way that I look at the budget is we look anybody in the eye, and we know that we've done legitimately what we can to make sure that we're not being frivolous or overspending or increasing where we shouldn't, and things of that nature. And this year in particular, it's going to be very interesting, because there's going to be people who are very happy, and there's going to be people who are very angry, and I understand that. And I think it's most important that we're able to identify not only what we did here, but how we're going to sustain this and maintain this and make this a process that improves as we go forward. And that's something that I'm really working. We really working hard to try to do. Just in the full disclosure area, who we're using for a town planner seems to bother people more than what the town planner is doing. And I also recognize that. And that's something that we need to deal with going forward. But the function is what people need to remember is the important aspect. And we did receive 2 bids when we went out for bid for town planning. And one of them was from somebody from Massachusetts, and we picked a company from Connecticut. So That's just another consideration, but there's what they're doing right now. And I'm sorry, Susan, I don't mean to go on and on, but I've spoken to municipalities our size and other any municipality actually that I'm aware of that has had success in terms of growing their base, growing their tax base, and growing particularly their commercial space. It's amazing some of the things that people have turned around, Suffield in particular, and there's some others like that really have done a wonderful job in terms of turning themselves around. And it's really great to go talk to them about what they're doing, but when you talk to them, one of the things that really resonates is we started this 8 years ago, we started this 10 years ago, we started this 13 years ago, and things of that nature. If you don't start, you don't get there. So what we're trying to do now is start. And it's hard, it's grinding, you don't see a lot, but if you don't start, you don't get there. And I think it's important for our town going forward for us to do that.
One question on
course.
that. Is that 80,000 a year?
Yes. Next
So
year is,
every year, then it's an 80,000.
yeah, next year's.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
or it's
Let's-
not 80,000, and then it's 2 or 3 years, and then we draw down on that.
And that's
No,
this
that's per year.
So
consultant.
it's 80,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's this consultant, Dwight.
I know, I
I'll
understand.
be
I
honest,
just-
and from my perspective, next year, obviously, I feel, okay, it took us 4 months to figure out what to do with this person. How do we draw value from this? So it's early in the process, as you mentioned. This next year should be like, we know what we're going after, so now let's make some real traction and let's demonstrate some real progress, or some progress. But going forward after that, it's something we may want to bring in-house and make it a part-time position. If we feel like it's something that somebody can do in less hours than what we're talking about, we might bring it in-house or something along those lines. But we'll be in a position at that point in time to make that assessment.
Okay.
And it's something that we will be considering. So it may not always be 80,000. I can tell you, if you want a full-time planner, it's going to cost a lot more than that.
Right.
No, I just didn't know if that was
Yeah,
a
just from a
yearly
perspective.
Fair
Just
question,
from a
fair
perspective.
question.
Very good question.
Of course.
Yep.
And
yeah.
Can I just ask, I was hoping that, and Tony, you always do a great job, so please don't take this comment to be anything other than wish, which I was hoping it would come in a little less, but you always are very good about saying, well, if we tried to get it lower, it would cost, we'd have to find this kind of
I can
savings.
certainly give you a little indication. here.
Just because I think that helps people
Yeah.
that,
Believe me, he's done the
oh,
numbers.
I know he's
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
No, it's just,
But thank you for bringing that up.
people.
Sure.
It's 80,000. It's a lot of money.
So if you want to get below 4% tax increase, you need an additional 525,000.
Yeah, that's not happening, okay.
That's not gonna happen, right.
Unless the school is willing to donate some. Both Amity and,
No, we can close the schools and the fire department,
There
the
you go.
police department, the
There you
whole,
go.
yeah.
There you go.
Schools only have to be open 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Good golly. Wow.
And it's hard not to increase by at least the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
When you think about the rate of inflation, you think about the increase beyond that, particularly where schools are concerned,
Yeah.
you're not going to sustain the type of schools that we have at the rate of inflation.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mika, because I was looking at the fact sheet, the draft of the fact sheet, and I know that a lot of the cost is driven by contractual increases in salaries, right? But I didn't see salaries mentioned anywhere. I know it's kind of insinuated in some other areas, but maybe
I can add that to.
it'd be good
It's a good point.
to
I
mention
like
that.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
good, contractual obligations. That's
Another
good.
question I had was like, how is this going to be distributed? Is it like a passive sheet that we just leave in the hallway and people come and grab it if they want? Was there any plans or intentions to distribute it? Maybe as part of a newsletter or something like that?
Well, we just said, maybe we'll post it on the website, maybe we'll have it as a loose sheet, sort of all in 1974, which is
Yeah.
sort of the way I think.
And the reason I asked that, Susan, is,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to see how it would get out, but I think it also affects the formality of it, if you will, because if it's going to be a fact sheet that gets delivered, then do we need citations and references and some other stuff on there as well? We don't want to just say, hey, this is this number because we say so, right?
Well,
Well,
it depends on what it is.
the
Yeah.
reason it says draft is because nobody had approved it. Once we vote on it, I think we can say on this that the Board of Finance has reviewed this and approved what's stated in here. And it has at least that level of credibility going forward.
So like the first one, the third one, the fourth bullet are all, first and the third bullet are state, there's a state reference we can use, state of Connecticut website reference. Some of are from the assessor, so I could, I could put a reference,
Yeah, references, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
It's fine, okay.
Yeah, that, I was just kind of
Yeah.
conceptualize what the format would be.
Yeah,
And I think it might be helpful, and I don't know if we can actually do this, is to sort of put in the number for the inflation or the average inflation, just to give people the understanding that, this is what we're basing this on. I don't know how easy that is to come up with an
I
actual.
thought about that, and I was wondering if that's too nerdy, to get too much into the weeds to put
Javier,
something like
that's what
that.
we count on you for, is to be real nerdy. So that's, yeah, I mean, listen, if it can be quantified in a way that's not,
see what I can do.
that's.
Yeah, of
that's
course
not-
CPI is
reflects,
easily found, yeah.
the reality.
But it has to be
That's
in
not-
something that people would understand.
We
so that-
do, and we do that in the preliminary and in the budget meeting, in the annual meeting.
That's,
I mean, I know we're gonna
From a
talk
slide
about it, but I'm just
perspective,
saying on a
that's
fact
gonna
sheet.
be part of the presentation.
But you're right,
But-
and on here, it wouldn't hurt.
And can I just ask, offsets include reductions to personal property and motor vehicles in 2026? I read that and said,
What does that mean?
what does that mean?
Yeah, okay.
Me too.
So, if you look at the grand list, if you look at the tax rate one, okay, you'll see that the real estate portion of the grand list goes up 54%. But the personal property, motor vehicle supplement all go down. So, to the extent the values, you'll probably pay less for your car but more for your house.
Okay.
I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So we're trying to sort of say that without getting too much into the weeds and saying, well, the average tax bill for a residence is this, then the average car is this, so if you take this, subtract it from this. I was trying not to get too,
I don't even think that's necessary. That's just
Yeah.
my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it'd be better just to
Okay,
leave that
I
out.
agree.
Okay.
Take it out.
fine. Yeah.
We always have the average thing
Yeah.
anyway as part of the
Yep, I can
presentation.
take that out, no
So
problem.
that's fine.
And
Okay.
maybe
If Tony does the, Tony has done the math on this, and when you do the math based on what Tony's saying, I understand his concern is if somebody looks at just what the real estate has done,
Right,
that increase is 10%, let's
Right.
say. And, but they're looking at a 5% tax increase. So it's like, okay, what makes up that difference, and that's where it is. That's really what it boils down to.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So.
But I can take that out, certainly.
Yeah, so here's what I want to do. So if there's no further comment on the fact sheet, that doesn't
I
need a
have a- I
formal
have a-
motion of
I
any
have a
kind. Oh, you
comment.
have, oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I don't know if this is possible to add as a fact, because it's not really related to facts, but is it possible to add something at the bottom? I don't know how to say that any better than what I just said, but I'm encouraging folks to, if they have questions, if they don't understand this, invite them to come to the preliminary budget hearing, because that's where you can get more questions answered or maybe an explanation, or call.
I thought you were gonna put your cell phone on there, Beth.
I used to do that.
Call me direct at 203.
You know what I would
Been there,
do?
done
I
that.
would just say, here's how I would handle
Something
that.
like that.
Here's how, I would just say, the preliminary budget hearing is April 24th
I can put that at the bottom.
at the bottom.
Yeah, that's what-
That's
yeah,
what I'm
that'd be
saying
good.
in like
Yeah.
With the
italics.
location, which by the way, as
Yeah.
I understand it, we are gonna be in the center, correct?
We expect to be
Oh,
in
correct.
We
the-
expect
in
to
the
be in the
gym.
center,
At the gym.
in the
In the
gym,
gym.
so that'll be good.
Just
Everyone can see our
something.
Yeah, that's fine, no, that's fine.
Because I think
We'll do it
people,
that way.
because if they
Stated
have
as
questions,
a-
who do they call? You know,
stated
and
as
show
a
up and
fact.
get more informed on,
Yeah.
if you don't
Okay.
understand what this means.
Is it worth mentioning that there's a cap on the mill rate for cars? I think it's personal property and cars, right? Or is it just cars?
Yeah.
Just cars, so they understand that,
I actually think that's a subtle point
okay,
for most people,
okay.
because nobody even knows that there's a cap.
Yeah.
Well, the
But-
mill rate is capped on
Yeah.
vehicles, so,
Yeah,
Okay.
by the state.
right.
I was thinking also, instead of saying electricity costs,
Uh-huh.
we say utility costs, because
Yeah.
natural gas
I told you
is
that.
through the
I
roof.
actually
That.
told him that.
She did say that.
I
I
did
forgot to
say
change
that.
it.
Okay.
I said this should say that.
You're right, you did say that.
This is the problem with designing a kitchen with 7 people involved, you know? It's hard to do that, all right? Okay, but these are all
Brown
very
or beige?
constructive comments. All right, anything else on that? Because I do want to circle back, of course, to
I guess I'll.
approving the
just-
cuts.
It's a hypothetical. Is there anything here that's discretionary that can be put off? next year, for another year, see the chief's here. Is there anything in this budget? If you needed to save $525,000, where would you do it?
Where would I do it?
Yeah.
If you wanted to, and not including the Board of Education?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think you have any more opportunity in the capital budget. Really, the only thing that's not discretionary, in my opinion, is debt service. Because everything else is at your discretion. It just has a service associated with it.
What about the contractual obligations?
They're contractual only to the extent you provide the service. You could say, you know,
So no more teachers?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
could.
Yeah.
You could say, yeah, what you can't do is eliminate a position and then hire a contractor.
Got it.
Or eliminate a position, but then give it to everyone else. I mean, there's certain things you can't do, but you could say, yeah, I think we're gonna have town hall go from 5 days a week to 4 days a week.
We're gonna
We've always
cut the
said,
day count. We're going to.
We're gonna eliminate the camp at recreation.
right,
We're going to, the library is gonna only be open 5 days during the week, during the day, during the week.
We're
No
gonna-
more nights and weekends.
limit the transfer station hours.
Right.
We even talked about that. That was
That's
something
why I
that
brought it up.
we were gonna
I know.
eliminate a day.
I know.
We're still looking at that, but that doesn't
So
necessarily
instead of,
it doesn't save enough money for it to be a budget
Because
item,
you
so.
keep the
So,
personnel in
so
other
let me go back
places.
to Donovan. What does that tell you,
Well,
if anything?
if anything, right? Well, there isn't much wiggle room in terms of,
And
I know conveniently the chief's here, but I was looking at the fire. That's
No,
discretionary.
inconveniently, the chief
Is
is
that,
here.
is that, I know you always make a good point of needing this equipment for this, for that, but is it really something that's really
necessary.
right?
Well, you could make some changes, and then if the chief wants to react to those changes, then he can. And then you could take what he has to say.
Just to follow up on Donovan's question, I believe that Tony's working, that the reduction from the 9 point whatever it was requested down to this 4.95 number is across the board. Everybody is participating
I see.
and taking the hit.
So it's already.
Am I
okay.
correct
Correct.
about that?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's not like any one
Makes
service
sense.
that the town provides is having to step up and provide all the sacrifice.
I see.
We're
Okay.
basically asking, and I think that's true pretty much on the capital side as well. It's
Definitely.
trickier on capital.
Okay.
I mean, we
Definitely
all
on the
acknowledge
capital.
that. But when I went over this with Tony last week, it looked to me like this was pretty much across the board. Everyone is gonna suffer a little bit. And frankly, that's kind of what happens every year, is
Yeah.
everybody suffers a little
That's
bit
true.
with this. Nobody gets everything they want. Right? I'm right about that,
Mhm.
okay, okay.
But the other thing I think we have to understand is that there are times where people we have to explain it properly if we do have a big increase. And there may be projects we may have to push to get them, to get them done. Because the more we put them off, the more they're gonna cost years down the road, next year, the following year, and everything else. So it's just something, I understand what everybody, where
Correct.
everybody's going, but
The other thing I want to
it's how you explain it and how you, because really it's like, you can't keep, like you said, you can't kick the can down the road, you can only go so far.
Correct,
And then you hit the bridge,
Right.
and then where do you go?
correct.
So that's just something we gotta think about, that's all.
Along those lines, Dwight, I want to mention that, so I keep track of our increases by category per year
You
over
do?
the past. So if
We
you
know
go,
you do.
so if you look from 2016 to 2025, the town has increased 14% over that time period. So that's roughly a 10-year period. That's 14.4%. The Woodbridge Board of Education at the same time period is 30%, and Amity's close to 40%.
Yeah.
So you can see clearly that where the increases have been and where the increases have not been
Yep.
over the past 10 years.
Yep.
And all the departments feel that impact.
Right. Can I just ask you a question? You guys were talking about inflation earlier. So what was that number, 2016 to 2025?
14.41% is the increase in expenditures in the town budgets from that time period.
And what was the cost of escalation from that point to today?
You mean in this 1 year? 3 point,
I'm talking about an escalation from 2016.
14 until-
Or 14 to 2025.
so 14%.
That's 14% in the town budget.
Town services.
Oh, I'm sorry, the whole town, 26%.
Right.
That includes.
That includes the 2 schools.
Right. But if you look in the whole scheme of things, the cost of escalation has gone up beyond that since 2016.
When we looked at it last year from an inflationary standpoint, we did that analysis. We looked at it from the school's perspective, each individual school, we looked at it from an inflation perspective, and we looked at it from the town perspective. As of last year, I think it was closer to 11 or 12% that the town had gone up. In the meantime, both schools had gone up over 30%, and inflation had been around 30%.
And I can tell you, you wonder how we were able to do that? I can tell you how we were able to do that. 2 main reasons. One, we've eliminated or reduced to part-time about 8, 9 positions, maybe close to 10 positions in that time period on the town side. And we're not keeping up with our capital expenses as we should. Those are the 2 areas that
That's where I'm
we're
coming
taking,
from.
that
That's
we're
right.
having, that we're able to do that.
And I just want to point out that the schools have not increased in the abstract. They've increased because there are more kids to educate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is why, one of the reasons why it continues to cost more. Big picture, people want to live here because of the schools. That drives up those costs. Because if you move here with 1 kid, you're not taxed on the number of kids you have. We're all paying those taxes because we all are educating those kids. The person with 6 kids in the school system, their taxes are the same as the person with 2 kids in the school system.
With no kids.
Or no kids.
With
Don't
no
get me
kids.
started about that.
That'd be me.
All
I'm
right.
there too.
Thank you, Sean, for your question. Anything else we want to delve into or talk about? I don't want to restrict this conversation at all. As you know, I'm more than capable of restricting conversation, but I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Okay?
There's just one or 2 more things on the draft that I wanted to
Yeah.
discuss maybe.
Please.
The first, I'm sorry, the 3rd bullet point, we're defining the assessed value.
Right.
I think it might be easier for the layperson to understand if you said like fair market value instead of estimated actual value.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good.
I'm trying to make this as
That's why I wanted everybody
easy to
weigh in.
understand as
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
And then the last bullet point, I don't know if it says plow and paving, maybe it should say plowing and paving of streets.
Maintenance of.
Or if you want to say, yeah.
Maintenance, I would say maintenance,
Okay,
right? I don't know.
all right.
It makes more sense though.
Which bullet was that? I'm sorry.
The very last one, your taxes pay for services including educating children,
Plowing.
plow and paving. It says right now, but
Yeah.
we want to say plowing and paving.
He just wants his present participles to
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I understand. Okay.
But thank you for this. This, I think,
Yeah.
this is a really good thing.
And I think it's important that,
Once we make these changes, we'll send it.
you'll
back
send it
around.
out again,
So,
and then we'll
yeah.
go from there, okay?
One of the things we did discuss is putting on here about the contracted costs. Is that something that we're putting on here?
The,
What was that?
The contracted
Oh,
costs.
uh-huh.
I was gonna add, contractual obligations.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, including salaries.
So I would
To it.
also just put the date of the preliminary hearing,
Yep, got that
and
here.
where it's located, et cetera.
Would you like me, I'll go through these to change the
And
headline?
Javier's phone number. I gotcha.
So I was gonna add,
Thank you.
contractual obligations, the inflation rate,
Yep,
remove offset section,
yep,
Yeah,
put the location, time, and date at the bottom of the sheet for the hearing.
yeah.
okay,
Change electricity to utility. Change estimated actual value to fair market value. And plow to plowing.
So if Tony makes those changes and sends it all around, this is not a formal anything that needs a motion. Can we
Right.
just agree that we'll just let him know if it's okay and,
Yeah,
We're
just
all
let me
okay
know
with
if
it?
anyone has any other suggestions or if I
okay?
missed on.
Okay.
Is that all
From a
right?
communication standpoint, what I'll plan to do is in the newsletters that we send out, that I send out, putting a link that'll bring the person to the website with this page. So it'll reference it.
That's great.
And then they
Thank you.
link it,
Perfect.
and then it'll go right into this, so they can
Perfect.
say,
I like
We'll
that.
add
more
it to our,
information.
well, Karen's
Thank
got a
you.
good idea. We'll add it to our budget materials, just the numbers
Just the
book,
numbers book.
the virtual budget.
Perfect. There you go. Okay?
Okay.
Speaking of that book, are we still printing that?
We
for the-
printed
the budget?
we print a limited number of them.
Do we have to do that?
No, we just do it because there are some people who are more comfortable with.
It's a
Because I remember a
transition.
pile of them being left over last year.
Yeah, we're pretty-
After the
used to be
preliminary,
made,
then we
like
bring
a-
them to the annual town meeting as well.
Oh, okay.
And there weren't that many left after the annual town
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can tell you they're really beneficial to department heads.
Yeah,
Yes.
because it's easy.
Instead of doing the
Yeah.
electronic,
Yeah.
they're really good.
Yeah.
It's easy just to pull it up and just to,
Yeah, I,
Right.
I use
And
it all
when
the time.
people walk in, this way they
Me
have
too.
an immediate resource.
I use it too.
You know,
Right.
it's
And they can go to a specific line item and they
Yeah.
can,
correct. I
Right.
I
think
really
it's,
pared it down from the old preliminary budget book that used to be, you know.
well, and then there
It's
was
just
the
the
budget
numbers.
book.
Yeah, I think there's value in presenting a physical
Yeah.
copy to department heads, but not, I think the general public we can provide them a way to get one and maybe print it on their own, but I think
Well,
that's,
that's not our,
something that should be
you guys
limited.
do what you've been doing, and I think that for this year, and then if you.
It's a transition year.
Okay.
So,
All right, do we wanna set the, do we wanna approve these reductions? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing, okay. We need a motion for that, yes?
yes.
Okay,
So you need a motion to, the expenditures. Want me to-
yeah,
Just do it?
Just do
Okay.
it, and then I'll, cause I don't, yeah.
to,
You're gonna say what he said.
to recommend to the preliminary budget hearing,
Right.
total expenditure for the FY fiscal year 2025-26 budget, total expenditures of 61,190,758. Total non-tax revenues of 6,436,737.
Right,
Amount to be raised in taxes of 54,754,021, with a mill rate for real estate and personal property of 32.68 and motor vehicles of 32.46.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Okay. Were you done?
yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on all of that? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? 2 opposed. Any abstentions? Okay. Moving on, first selectmen's report.
I believe we just met recently. It doesn't seem like it was a month ago, so I think I reported a little bit last time. But one of the things I did want to provide is just a report on the center building. At this point in time, we've through every agency that we've worked with, they've all categorically identified that there is no air quality issue at the center building. So it is safe to be at the center building and enter the center building. We did find, and as I think I explained before, there were asbestos wipe tests that showed that there were positive particles of asbestos in different areas. As a result, we will be cleaning areas in the center building. We will be starting, there's 2 particular rooms in the police department that we will start with as a priority just because they're in there. And subsequent to that, the next space that we will be working on is the Woodbridge Center, the cafe, the kitchen area, the entire Woodbridge Center, and the gym really doesn't need anything because there was never anything found as far as that was concerned. But we will be cleaning those areas primarily as a way to just make people feel more comfortable in terms of going back in there. It's been an arduous process in terms of identifying, and we found out that the wipe testing is just not something that's categorized or quantified in any way, shape, or form to determine whether it's safe, it's not safe, or anything along those lines. It's not very often used, so it's an area that there's no real definitive answer. So we felt it would be best to clean it just for the safety and comfort of the staff and residents who use those facilities. That'll be done on a quick turnaround basis. We have engaged a consultant. It's the same consultant we use at the Beecher Road School, and they will be putting together a survey for us. OSHA has indicated to us that it's required. We have a survey, so we're immediately taking care of it. Matter of fact, we were already doing it, which was a kind of a nice thing. We were already engaging with the people who would do it. We'll also have a contractor go in there and do the necessary cleaning. It will be a licensed contractor who works specifically with asbestos and hazardous materials, not just a cleaning service. And we expect to have the police department will stay open for the whole time, and as it has. Also, just to make that really, really clear to people as far as the police department, because there were some questions that people asked as to why the police department stayed in their facility. It's a separate addition with very little connection, physical connection to the part of the building that has a lot of asbestos. The police department just doesn't have a lot of asbestos. It has some, and we're going to be taking care of those areas that it does have there. So there was never an indication that there was a problem, safety problem or hazard in the police department. So that's the reason it's the police department. If you didn't need to move it, you shouldn't move it. But we expect by the end of next week to have those other areas clean. The only area that will still remain will be the area where the child center was and the area in that hallway where the fitness center is, that entire hallway there, which will take up, we hope that we might be able to secure some grants and things of that nature in order to help us with some of these expenses, because we're incurring some pretty significant expenses in taking care of this. Thank you for the very good fund balance, Tony. But we do expect that the gym, the senior center, the Woodbridge Center, and will be open by the end of next week at the latest.
I would say that's correct.
So we're moving forward. I'll probably put that out tomorrow in a newsletter, but that's where we are as far as the center building is concerned. We then we're still working with the parents in the child center. They have a lot of material there that we need to determine if some of it, if they want it, what we're going to do with it. So that's our next area of looking into and working with them to determine what we want to do. There have been, if you look on the website at this point in time for CCW, really there's the last presentation to the Board of Selectmen includes some visuals that tell you where different things can happen in different areas. It's worthwhile to look at and identify because it gives you a visual depiction as to what, where type of thing. And one of the things that it also gives you a very clear depiction of is that the majority of the property will still be green space, which is a very important thing to, I think, everybody who's engaged in this. The Board of Assessment Appeals has been meeting consistently with a number of different people. I think I might have mentioned that there's about 250, a little less than 250 people who filed appeals with them. They're moving through that very, very quickly. So there may be some changes, some degree of change in terms of, as Susan mentioned earlier, but it's a process. And what I mentioned before is what I was going to mention now. It's just that there's a quantity of residents who are looking at a pretty significant increase in terms of their home values, and therefore in terms of the taxes that go along with that. The taxes shift from the people whose homes aren't going up as much to those people whose homes have gone up a lot, and the whole thing is about the shifting of the taxes. It's one of the challenges we have is it's hard for people to understand. We don't have control on this. We just don't. It's something we have to do every 5 years. It's something that a consultant has to be hired to do and identify market value and move forward with. And there's not a lot of we don't have a lot of input into this, or nor do we have a lot of control. But the appeals are being heard, and hopefully they're going well. But I have gotten a lot of calls from people who are just not very happy about this whole thing. And that's it. The other thing I think Tony already mentioned, I was just going to mention, we are looking at the transfer station in terms of the deficit as we've experienced in terms of charges for services. We really need to, as a Board of Selectmen, we're going to need to take a look at that. So in the next few months, it'll be something that's put on the agenda so we can identify how we can better or more effectively deal with that, so we're not losing money in terms of some of the things that we're that are happening as far as transfer station is concerned. And that might include changing hours and things of that nature. But the real value of changing the hours, and there will be significant value there, because if we can get even 2 guys for 1 day working in the Parks Department, for example, it helps us tremendously from what they have to do in part-time help. So we do reduce costs, and it does help us from that perspective. And that's it. Any questions?
Mika, thank you. Do we have any idea how much the entire remediation is gonna cost to clean the center?
Yeah, I'd say right now our estimate is we're at about 150,000.
Currently,
That's not including any abatement in the child center.
in that
Yeah,
whole,
it's just
that whole
cleaning,
area.
right? That's just going through cleaning and all
That's
that.
cleaning and then some abatement in a few areas, some minor abatement in a few areas that, not to the extent that the child center would be, but some
We're
minor.
not touching the floor.
Pardon?
We're not taking floor tiles up and whatever as part of the.
We're letting the consultant define
I'm just curious,
exactly
I'm
what
just-
we want to
okay.
do.
There's
And there
one
will be,
area in the police
Yeah.
department that's got.
That has to go up.
The bathroom in the,
Yeah,
room
yeah.
that would mean the bathroom in the back.
Yep,
it's a small, very small bathroom,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we'll be doing that.
yep, okay.
So, and we don't know what the that, and when we say child center, we mean that entire floor area there that we'll be working on. So we're not sure what that'll be, but it'll be
Yeah.
something that'll raise it up.
So
From there.
there's no insurance claim associated
No,
with
there's
this?
no claim for this. We
Okay.
did apply for a grant for that, so we're hopeful.
Oh,
Good.
I thought I heard you mention earlier that, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Tom.
I was just curious, if the wipe test isn't necessarily valid, how do we know that it's clean after they've cleaned it?
Because they've cleaned it.
Okay.
That's the
And
answer.
they're pros, so they
Right.
theoretically do it the right way.
The understanding is that it's, again, you can get it from anywhere, I know so much more about this than I did before. So, but you could, there's so many different ways that it can happen, so, which is one of the reasons that there's not a indication based on a wipe test that you have to take a particular action.
Okay.
So, but what everybody we've insisted that they give us an indication is there any reason to be concerned? Is there any reason for people not to be in that building? And across the board. And you're talking the health department, the QVHD,
OSHA.
occupational health,
Yeah.
OSHA,
Yeah.
a couple, and our consultants, the Fuss O'Neill and the others. Across the board, there's not an issue in the building in terms of, from a safety perspective, in terms of
That's good.
asbestos.
People need to know that.
So,
And Tony, I thought I heard you mention earlier that 150K is not a cause for concern in this year's budget.
Right, because I'm
You
gonna be used, that's why I mentioned earlier that the surplus is probably down low, because we're gonna use some surplus
Got it.
funds to
Okay.
address it.
And then it's my understanding that the daycare is dissolved, right?
It's hard for me to say specifically. We've tried to work with the daycare. We were working with the church as well to try to move them there as
Right.
quickly as possible. From what I understand, that's never happened. We talked to JCC, we talked to B'nai Jacob also with the daycare in terms of trying to move them as quickly as possible. They've never come back to us and asked for any of our help. We offered help with our legislatures to get the certifications that are required to get those expedited. And we talked to all of the people who had the space in order to accommodate them, to make sure, like, for example, they did some remediation on their side to make sure that if the kids did go in there, it was prepared for them, that type of thing there. I suspect, well, I won't even say it. I know the church has some ideas on their own, but I know that's not where the kids are right now. And I know that the parents at this point, after 2 weeks, have found other option. But there's still a lot of there is still communication between the parents and us, and obviously there's a significant concern on the part of the parents in terms of this whole situation, as you might imagine, and where we continue to work through that.
The reason I ask is, Tony, does that have any effect on our budgeting for any revenues that we might have realized from leasing that space out
So,
in next year's budget?
yes, it does. So if we don't, this doesn't realize itself, I was gonna wait till the hearing, but yes, if in fact this doesn't realize itself, then we'll have to remove those revenues from the budget, if it doesn't resolve itself.
About how much was that? It was like 70,000 the last time?
Yeah, about 70,000.
The total is 70,000,
Yeah,
correct?
correct.
Yeah.
So next year, we won't have that 70,000, is what you're getting at.
I was one
Yeah.
of the founders of the Woodbridge Child Center. I remember the day we got the phone number.
My girls went there as well, so it
It's
breaks my
a
heart.
very long time
Breaks my
ago.
heart.
Okay. Any other, you're done?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other liaison reports? Okay, this is Javier's favorite part. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There you go. See?
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Yep.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Okay.
So we'll see you all at our next, regular meeting, right?
Yes,
Okay.
regular meeting.